What's up, people, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to Not Just Design Pod. I'm your host, Drones. Unlike a regular podcast where I talk to you and explain one interesting fact I've learned this week, this episode will be different. I'm going to be reading out a blog, something I found very, very interesting and helpful to me in my journey of building what's podcasting. For many people who know or who don't know is I am building a company. It's called What's Podcasting. What's Podcasting is a podcast management company that helps busy individuals and businesses manage the process of making a podcast. The pre-production, the production, and post-production. They just come, sit down, record, and that's all. And our focus for the last 6-7 months have been specifically on remote podcasters. Now, building this company is a new experience for me, and has come with a lot of learning. This particular blog that I'm about to read for you today has been one of those tools or one of those things that I go back to, I read them again to remind myself of why I started, how to move forward, my perception of things. That said, if you're a builder or you know somebody building something out there, you can send them a link to this blog, a link to this podcast. With that said, check the link in the description if you want to get access to the actual blog by Tyler Hogge. Tyler Hogge is an amazing person with a lot of startup building experience under his belt. You would love his podcast and other articles. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the internet, as you listen, may you be blessed. A few thoughts on intensity. January 29th, 2024. I have written about the elements of exceptional startups. This post is slightly different. I want to share what I think is the most important trait for a successful startup. By traits, I mean a cultural characteristics, a way of doing things, a company personality. I believe the most important trait for exceptional startups is intensity, not intelligence, charisma, or positivity. Although those traits are required, why do I believe this? The first reason I believe this is observation. I have been a part of 3 exceptional startups, and each of them had a culture of intensity, with the most intense being the most successful. I have also observed this across dozens of other startups. Those who end up breaking out operate with a high level of intensity. The second reason I believe this is logic. If you consider how impossible the startup journey is, it stands to reason that only through intensity can something be created out of thin air that grows to be worth billions of dollars in just few years. Startups are dead by default, and yet a small number of them overcome that certain debt to build something enduring. Certainly, such large outcomes don't come about through happen instants. It is through the focused, intense effort of a group of people that something like that can happen. Here's a tweet from John Collision that resonates, although he uses tenacity and passion to describe something similar. Now, I'm going to read the tweet for you, and it says, as you become an adult, you realize things around you weren't just always there. People made them happen. But only recently have I started to internalize how much tenacity everything requires. The hotel, the park, the railway, the world is a museum of passion projects. End of tweet. The third reason I believe this is because what I have learned from studying some of startups' most successful founders and operators. There are a few posts here from different founders and different tweets that are screenshots in this blog, but I'll skip that. To summarize just this section, there are tweets and names: Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Frank Saltman's quotes, Paul Graham using the founders of Airbnb as examples of tenacity and intensity, the idea of remote working and how the underlying goal is intensity. Sam Altman's view during his time at YC, Elon Musk, Walt Disney. All these people are examples given as people with tenacity and intensity. So I'll move on to continue with the blog. It's worth noting that people have different personalities. Yes, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk are all abrasive, often accused of being assholes. But few people will say that about Brian Chesky, Sam Altman, and John Collision. Yes, they are all intense, even though each has a different personality. When I shared this observation about intensity on LinkedIn, several people asked me to share more about what I meant. So I'll end this with that. Intensity is an adjective meant to convey high or extreme degree of something. This means that intensity is a layer across all other characteristics, a force of multiplier, a measurement of extremism. Not all fires are intense, but we know an intense fire when we feel and see it. Not all work ethic is intense, but we know an intense work ethic when we see it. Not all communication is intense, but we know intense communication when we hear it. Not all missions are intense, but we know intense missions when we hear and live them. Perhaps the best summary of what I mean by intensity is Frank Saltman's performance culture. Raise the quality bar, increase the speed, narrow the focus. Doing all these things to an intense degree is what I mean by intensity. Most startups care about quality, but not intensely. They want to increase speed, but not intensely. They think focus is important, but they don't focus intensely. Most people want to leave, but not intensely. But without intensity, great startups, and I would argue great lives, cannot be built. End of blog. There are many ways to think about this. Whenever I read this article, because I do go back to read it time to time, it puts my mindset, it puts my head, or it puts my mind in a position where I have to think of what can I do that is so intense I believe that my competitors cannot afford to do, don't have the time to do, or didn't even think about doing it. Now, this is a very challenging thing, but I think about what is that intense thing? How can I move the company forward in a way that I believe that my competitors cannot do? As much as the idea for what's podcasting is to make podcasting feel like a breeze for most people, I have the ideal mindset that I want to be the company where the employees are paid well, I'm getting paid well, and the customers we work with are happy with our service. To me, that's the company that I would want to work in, and that's the company I want to build. And I'm always thinking, what is the most intense thing I can do right now to push me further to that goal, to that needle all the time? Not to say too much, but if you are listening to this, I will employ that you think towards that direction as well. I may be wrong now, but there's no way I'll find out if I don't do it. So do something intense today. Do something with all tenacity. Do it because you are in love with it. Do it because you want to see it grow. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the internet, that's Not Just Design Pod for today. See you next week, same time. Bye. Lorenzo, do the ad. Okay, ma. Okay, Lorenzo, do the ad. Okay. Oh shit. Excuse me. Yeah, excuse me. Do the ad, Lorenzo. Yeah. Do the ad. Okay. What? Lorenzo, are you crying? Stop crying. Sorry, stop crying. Chill. Check out What's Podcasting newsletter on Substack for podcast recommendations that you would like. Lorenzo, why did you just say you wanted to sneeze? You would have just, recorded again.